Hello, and welcome again to another episode of Mind Renovation Nation, brought to you by Red Maples, your go-to source for institutional style property management of multifamily real estate. I'm your host, Nathan Bush, and each show I share with you lessons I learned from my growing real estate business. In today's episode, we're going to welcome Bryan Schroeder, a seasoned real estate investor and entrepreneur who's known for his innovative approach to wealth building. We're going to learn all about his Schroedernomics. Gosh, I've got so many questions. This guy is just a litany and a lightning rod of information and wealth building, and you guys are going to get a lot of value out of that. And we're going to contrast this Schroeder economics or Schroedernomics with the controversial American financial plan. So I say it's controversial because it just seems to not be working. I'll share with you some resources as to why that might not be, and we'll uncover and unpack that as the show goes on today. So stay tuned as we provide strategies to help you maximize your money in today's show. You don't want to miss this. We've designed this show to answer the questions you have about mastering your money, guys. That's why we put this show together. If you want more of these types of resources regularly, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel or head over to www.nathanbushmba.com/subscribe, and I will send you a litany of tools and resources and all kinds of goodies. So just go do that right now. All right, check out the other resources and the links in the show description. And if you have questions during the show at any point today, you can throw them in the comments like normal. Right. And again, I would be remiss if I didn't bring back and talk just a brief second about our sponsor, Red Maples. So we provide institutional style property management. This is like property management like the big boys. And if you wonder, are your properties profitable? Do I need to sell my properties? Should I refinance my properties? Well, Bryan Schroeder can help you with some of that information, but we can too. You're going to scan the QR code or go to redmaples.com/assessment, and maybe Bryan Schroeder will be the one doing your loan for you later on. So just go ahead and check that out. And again, don't forget to subscribe. All right, now to the show. There's only one thing that stands between you and your goal. This is the story you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it. That was a quote from Wolf of Wall Street. Jordan Belfort said this. And I truly believe that. Today's show, we're going to explain to you why you may not be achieving the goals that you're looking for. And some of that might just be from this right here. I'm going to pull up on the screen for those that are watching on the live cast. And I'm going to, for those that are watching on the podcast, I'll read the screen off to you. I know those that are watching live, sometimes reading a screen can get a little cumbersome, but I'm going to do it. So, in what year did the U.S. Congress establish the 401k plan, which transformed the way Americans save for retirement? Was it A, 1929, B, 1953, C, 1978, or 2002? If you're watching online, throw it in the comments. What do you think? What year did Congress establish the 401k plan? What do you guys think? Is it A, B, C, or D? Well, the answer, if you didn't know, is C, in 1978. That wasn't, yes, it was a little bit ago, but it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like right after the stock market crash or whatever. And why do you think they set this 401k plan up for Americans? Just a question. That there's often a challenge whenever somebody says to you, we're here from the government and we're here to help you. I would say run, right? Well, this might just be because Richard Nixon in 1971. Now, these things are totally unrelated. Just for the fact checkers that are going to come back behind my show and say, oh, this is all fake and this information is not true. I'm not saying that these two things are related. I'm saying that it was really relatively close to 1971 to 1978 when Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard. And now we have a 401k plan being developed. So I don't know if you knew that in 1971, Richard Nixon, that was the year they took us off the gold standard. And that moved a revolution throughout the global financial system to do all kinds of different stuff. This monumental shift changed the very way people build and protect their wealth, and making strategies to navigate these new landscapes became even more crucial in 1971. Okay. So then 1978, we established this 401k plan and the world solved. Today, though, we're going to dive into Schroedernomics with Bryan Schroeder, a visionary who has mastered the game of money in this post-gold standard era. Bryan's approach to financial freedom and wealth building is designed to thrive in our modern economic system. And who is Bryan Schroeder? Well, Bryan Schroeder is a passionate real estate investor, and he's dedicated to helping people build lasting connections. With over 25 years of experience, he has successfully grown an extensive portfolio of single-family rentals in the St. Louis area, founded several thriving real estate investment businesses, including the Faster House program, the Faster House company. Guys, this is a huge company throughout St. Louis. This is the guy. If you wanted to know the guy in St. Louis, this is him. All right. Bryan currently co-manages Faster Funds Lending, a prominent local hard money lending company, alongside his stepdaughter, Susan. And he also co-manages Buyers Club. So if you've ever attended that event, this is Bryan Schroeder's event, the largest real estate investment club in the St. Louis area, with his stepdaughter, Rachel. In addition to his accomplishments in Missouri, Bryan recently ventured into luxury vacation rental market in Schroedernomics. And maybe if we have time, we'll get to talk to him a little bit about vacation rentals, combining his love for this magical place with his passion for real estate investing. Welcome to the show, Bryan. Thank you very much for being a part of the conversation here on Mind Renovation Nation. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the intro. And I'm actually in Sedona right now at one of our houses. So it's a great place to come visit out in Arizona, the high mountains of the Arizona desert.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And it's fascinating to me because my daughter, I don't know if you know this about me, Bryan, or not, but my daughter, since she was 4 years old until she was 9. Now she's 11. So she went on to do volleyball, but she did ATA Taekwondo, and she took third in the world in ATA Taekwondo. And what's really fascinating about that story and the connection I have with you in Arizona is she went to Worlds in Arizona. And
Nice.
So I'm very familiar with Arizona. And in fact, it was right outside of Scottsdale that she fought for her third. Well, she was going on for first, but that's a story for a different day. She fought for her third place title that she ended up winning. And my favorite part of that whole story wasn't the fact that she took third place. I bring that up to show the level of discipline and commitment that my family has to success.
Yeah.
But the interesting and fascinating part of that is I show a picture whenever I do talks of my daughter pointing to the first place girl and being so excited in a good sport and so happy that somebody else was able to win first place. With the Olympics coming up,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you're a competitive person, Bryan.
I'm excited about the Olympics. I think it starts tonight, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's been fascinating, except for I heard something on the news, and I don't really watch the news all that often, but I guess there was some tampering with the train system, maybe some arson or something that's going on. I guess everybody's trying to be political these days. I don't know.
I don't know either. Hopefully they're able to compete. That's all, that's all that matters to me. And everybody's safe over there.
Yeah. Well, my plan today is not to get political. My plan today, though, when we talk about economics and we talk about the traditional American finance plan, you and I had a side conversation. We had some notes that went back and forth prior to our call today. What is this traditional American finance plan that people are stuck in, and why they feel like they're not getting ahead with superinflation and everything that's going on?
Well, it's funny. You talked a little bit about, when they started, getting off the gold standard, and when the 401k started, which I didn't even know when the 401k started. So that was fascinating for me. Prior to that, I think the typical American stayed in a job for a long time, and then they got a pension that they lived on after they retired. Well, that's long gone, and now we're in this other America that we live in today. And I feel like what most people do is some version of this. And I'd love your feedback on this, Nathan, but most people, when they get out of high school or get out of college, a lot of people go to college. Some people don't. Either way, I don't think, I don't have a strong preference either way. But most people get their first real job after they get out of high school or get out of college. And most people's job is basically just something that they kind of stumble into. They're not super proactive on figuring that out. So they get a job, and then they're working, and some people, I've known some people, like I got a friend that just worked at GM for 30 years, and he's getting ready to retire. And then I also know people that bounce around every 3 or 4 or 5 years and do a lot of different things. But I see so many people that don't find the job that they love, that they're passionate about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in Schroedernomics. But most people get a job, they work for 30 to 40 years. Maybe they're at one place, maybe they jump around a little bit. They save a little money. In today's world, that's typically because their employer offers a 401k plan and they contribute to it because of that. And then they typically somewhere along the lines buy their personal home. And that's so both the 401k and the buying their personal home are kind of forced savings plans. And then eventually people get to the point where they start thinking about retiring. They're seeing their friends and people around them retire, and they go to them. They start asking themselves this question, like, do I have enough saved to live on the rest of my life, or am I going to run out of money and still be alive? So that there's this weird period of their time where they're afraid to leave the work environment, even though they want to retire, but they can't, or they're afraid to because they don't know if they have enough money to live on. And they just basically hope that eventually they retire, or they're forced to retire, and they hope they have enough money to live on the rest of their life. So that's kind of what I think is the typical normal American's game plan with money. Have you seen people do that at all, Nathan, yourself?
That's one of the interesting facets of my life, is that I've watched people all around me not only live that out, but then they get to the end of their life and I've watched them run out of money. I've watched them, struggle, need to live with other people. They do a number of different things in order to get them to get to the end. I'd hate to say it that way, but that's what I end up seeing.
Yeah, I see it all the time. In our house buying business, you mentioned Faster House, our house buying business. There are so many times we're buying houses from people when that's their last asset. And basically they're moving into a senior center, and quite often they're getting put on a Medicaid bed because they can't afford to take care of themselves. And Medicaid's basically taking whatever equity they have in their last asset, their house. I saw that so many times in our real estate business, Faster House.
I heard the commercials today on the radio on the way to work where they were saying, okay, you can sell your house back to this company now and they'll rent it to you until you pass away. So you can get your equity back out.
Yep, that's a trend going on right now. I hear you. So do you want to talk about Schroedernomics? You want to know what I recommend people to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated by this concept that you've developed called Schroedernomics. Why don't you give kind of a brief overview? I know there's a couple of stories and things that I'd like to ask you about that we were talking about, but what is this concept of Schroedernomics?
All right, I'll go over it briefly, and then we'll dig into any different areas you want to and tell some stories. But this is what I think. This is how I've lived my life, and how I encourage people that are willing to listen to me to live their life. Is number one, when you get out of high school or college, wherever you're at, find a vocation that you love, something that you just love to do, so you never have to work another day in your life. I see so many people that go to work every day hating what they do. Well, I'm a firm believer that there is something that you can do that you will just love, that you'll have a passion for, and you'll never have to work another day in your life. Now, you might not get that right out on your first job, so you might have to, experiment a little bit, because I'll tell a story. But let me roll through these things. So number one is find a vocation that you love. So that's number one. Number two is so simple, but it's spend less than you earn. Whether you make 50 grand a year or $1 million a year, spend less than you earn. And I got some stories on that, but let's go through the list and then we'll come back to it. So number three is to create a passive income stream. Just get started. Get started with a passive income stream. Find one that you're excited about and grow it. And then number four is set a goal for how large you want to build that income stream. And what I always recommend people do is determine what your, figure out how much your monthly expenses are, and then set a goal to create a passive income stream that is larger than your monthly expenses. Because once you get to that point, you got financial freedom. You can choose whether you want to go to work or not, because you got a passive income stream greater than your monthly expenses. So that's number 4. Set that passive income stream goal and track it. Okay, number 5. Once you have a passive income stream greater than your monthly expenses, shift your focus from income to wealth building. And you do that by buying assets that increase in value with inflation. And we can talk a little bit about what changed when Nixon took us off the gold standard. But to me, that's when really inflation really took off. All right, the number 6. And I know it's a little hard to track all these. We're going to go into these in more detail. But number 6 is to set a net worth goal. How big do you want to build your net worth, and start tracking it? What you track, is and what you focus on is what will grow. And then lastly, number 7 is when you reach your net worth goal, relax. You've accomplished everything you need to in life. You don't need to keep going. Sometimes I see people that just can't quit, and they just keep on the hamster wheel, keep chasing things. You don't have to. Just relax and have a good time after you reach your net worth goal. So that's Schroedernomics in a nutshell, Nathan.
And I love that. And, step 1, find something that you love to do. Step 2, I heard you write down, spend less than you earn. Step 3, passive income. Step 4, set a goal larger than your expenses. Step number 5, income to wealth building. So transition. So then set a goal for your net worth. And then once you reach your net worth goal, chill out.
Chill out.
and relax. So let's talk a little bit about finding what you love. Because from what I remember from the notes and the conversations we've had, you were a college wrestler, and then you became a rocket scientist.
I did.
What happened there?
Well, I'll just share my story here, because I think everybody has a story, and hearing other people's stories helps you, understand maybe what you need to do to find your passion. But for me, I was an athlete, kind of like what you were talking about with yourself, your family, and your daughter. I was an athlete when I was younger, and I, to be honest, my passion was football. But I knew I just wasn't going to make it very far in football. So I was a wrestler. So I wrestled in college, high school, and in college, and really that's what I went to college for, was to wrestle in college. And, when you show up at college your first day, they ask you, you got to pick a major. I don't know if you remember doing that, but you get with a counselor, and you got to pick a major. And for whatever reason that day, and I truly don't know why I did this, but for whatever reason that day, I picked aerospace engineering. I don't know if it was like the first one on the list because it started with A, or if it just sounded fun to me. I was always good in math and things like that. So, it kind of worked. But the bottom line is I got an aerospace engineering degree. Well, I was wrestling in college, and, while you're there, you got to get a degree. So I got a degree in aerospace engineering because it sounded fun, and it kind of was fun. I enjoyed learning about it. But then after I graduated college, I got a job as an aerospace engineer. That is actually I grew up in Iowa, a small town in northern Iowa, and on a farm. But after I graduated college, I came to St. Louis because I got a job with McDonnell Douglas, which is now Boeing. And when I started at McDonnell Douglas, I think so many people are like this. You don't know what you actually do when you get a job. You know what I mean? And for me, every day for me was kind of regimented there, because you had to track your hours, because the government, you're basically paid by the government. So you had to track your hours. So I had to work from 7:18 to 3:48, and I had 30 minutes for lunch. And that sounded terrible. And it was terrible. And I sat in a cube, just a little 6x6 cube, looking at a computer for 8 hours a day, where there were rows and rows of engineers just sitting there doing their thing in front of a computer for 8 hours a day. And I could see like the the guy, a couple cubes over from me had been there for 30 years, and he was just counting down his days to retirement. And, that just wasn't for me. If I would have had a different type of engineering job where I was out like working on airplanes, I worked on the FA-18 aircraft, which was cool. I enjoyed it, the airplane. And I saw it like in person, like maybe once every 6 months or something. The rest of the time I was sitting behind a computer. So it wasn't for me. I'm a lover of freedom, and sitting in a cubicle for 8 hours a day is not freedom. So I knew within 6 months of working there that, gosh, I'm just not having fun. And I have a strong desire to enjoy what I do. So I started looking around, and this was like 1991, 92. There was infomercials on, late night infomercials, and there was a guy named Carlton Sheets. Do you happen to know Carlton Sheets or remember seeing any of his infomercials?
Carlton Sheets doesn't ring a bell, but I've seen all kinds of those different infomercials. The ones about you can buy government housing, you can buy, pennies on the dollar, tax sale infomercials, wholesaling infomercials. I've seen all kinds of different ones on the late nights.
Yeah, well, I saw the Carlton Sheets one and I bought it. I was up after late night. I bought the infomercial. It came, it was cassette tapes at the time. So I got this package of cassette tapes and I listened to them when I was driving to work and just driving around and stuff. And it got me excited about real estate. It just interested me. So I learned enough from those tapes to kind of get interested in real estate and know that it was something that I think I would enjoy, but I didn't know how to make a living just by listening to those tapes. So what I did is I thought, I could become a real estate appraiser. I feel like I would enjoy that and be good at it. And then I could really learn the real estate investing business a little bit better. So I basically did a direct mail campaign to all the real estate appraisers in the St. Louis metro area, basically telling them that I wanted a job as an appraiser. And I sent a direct mail campaign to everybody in town. And I got like 3 or 4 calls, and I ended up going to work for a guy named John the Grand. Wonderful dude. He was a mentor of mine. I worked for him for 8 years as a real estate appraiser. And I learned a ton about appraising. But on the side, I started investing in real estate. My first deal was a short sale. So I learned about short sales. My second deal was buying at the courthouse steps. So I learned a little bit about buying at the courthouse steps. And, just over that 8-year period where as a real estate appraiser, I kind of learned the real estate investing business. I flipped several houses. The first several houses I did, I bought them, moved into them, rehabbed them while I lived in them, and then sold them. So, because I didn't have any money, that's what I had to do. So you do what you have to do. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's kind of how I kind of wandered through into real estate investing, and I just found out that I loved it. So it took me a little bit of time, and I guess courage to build up the courage to go full time in real estate investing. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a story. November 20th of 2002, I went to breakfast with a buddy of mine. His name's Jim Stigamar. And Jim, I was a real estate appraiser. Jim was in the financial services business. He worked for Payne Weber. And that day, we were both kind of tinkering in real estate on the side, doing a little flipping, and we both had a couple rentals. But that day, something magic happened. We both just decided, gosh, we love real estate. Let's just start a business today. So on that day at breakfast, November 20th, 2002, 2002. So 22 years ago, we started Faster House. And the simple plan was we were going to flip houses, buy enough houses to live on, as in buy a house, rehab it, resell it, do that to live on for our active income. And then whenever we had enough money, we would start buying rentals. So that's what we did. And I have truly loved the real estate business ever since that day. So step number one is find a vocation that you love. So that was my journey to get into the real estate business and doing something that I really love.
That's fantastic, Bryan. I mean, what was it about real estate that was so intriguing to you? What made that become part of your passion versus that desk job that you had?
Well, a lot of things. Number one is I didn't have to sit behind a cube all day. You could be out and about and meeting people and, going to people's houses to talk to them. Or when you're rehabbing, the rehabbing process, we didn't do a lot of the work ourselves. We basically general contracted it. So just meeting people, seeing the before and after of it, the strategy of it. There's just so much about real estate investing that I like. But the real thing about the game of money, which we're talking about here, is step number one is find something that you love. And I truly love real estate, and I think you do too, right, Nathan? You're a real estate guy.
I've been doing real estate for over 15 years now, so yeah, it's a passion and a calling, and if I wanted to get away from it, I don't think I ever could. It's just one of those things where there's something attractive about the concept of buying an asset that's going to pay you over time. Yeah,
I agree. But I will tell you a quick story, and then let's move on to step number two. But you and I both love real estate. I do occasionally run across people that get into the real estate business just to make money. And I encourage people to do that. Invest in real estate to make money, but don't become a full-time real estate investor unless you're passionate about it. Find your passion, whatever it is. Somebody might be just passionate about a high school basketball coach, or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but step number one is find whatever you love to do so you never have to work another day in your life because you're earning an income doing what you love. But let's move on to step number two. Step number two is spend less than you earn.
Yeah, how do we do that?
Well, I'll tell a quick story because I think so many people are similar to me. But when I got my first real job at McDonnell Douglas, I can't really remember exactly how much I made, but I think it was like $35,000 or $40,000 a year, something like that, which was a lot of money for me at the time. And because before that I was broke. But when I got my first job, I had this beater car. So I like within a week or two of getting my job, I moved to St. Louis and I went down to a car dealership, and I just went to a used car dealer because I just needed a car. And I bought this, it was a 1978 Buick. And I drove it for like a couple, I don't know, I'm going to say like 3 weeks or something like that. It wasn't very long. And then I was sitting in my cube at the McDonnell Douglas, and the guy sitting right next to me had just bought a Mitsubishi Eclipse, a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse. And his name was Shane. And Shane had started at McDonnell Douglas like 6 months before me. And I knew he made roughly the same amount of money that I did. And I thought, well, shit, if Shane can have a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse, which is a cool car, I can have one. So I went out that next weekend and traded in my used car that I just bought like a few weeks before that had negative equity in it because I financed 100% of it because I didn't have any money, and bought a brand new, they didn't have a Mitsubishi Eclipse on the lot that day. So I got an Eagle Talon, which is basically the same car. I don't know if you remember that car, but it's kind of a sports car. It's, fast sports car. I'm a car lover. I've always loved fast cars. Anyway, bottom line is I traded my negative equity in on my used Buick for more negative equity in my brand new Eagle Talon, which I enjoyed the car, but I had the big monthly payments. And then that's just kind of a typical, I think a lot of people are like that when they get when they forget their first jobs, they just start spending money. And whether you make $50,000 a year or $1 million a year, I encourage people, you got to figure out how to make less or spend less than you make. So for me, I kind of stumbled into Dave Ramsey. Are you a Dave Ramsey fan, Nathan?
Yeah, I'm a Dave Ramsey fan to teach people how to be good stewards of money to begin with. So, if you setting aside an emergency fund, paying down your debt, then investing in your 401ks or whatever it is that you got to do, buying your insurance policies that you need for protection at that point, like follow the Dave Ramsey baby step process so that you can get to the point where all your debt's paid off and all you have to manage is your expenses, your living expenses. That's not a terrible program. It's not a terrible program to get rid of the junk and the garbage that you don't need, like your cable bills. Now you can buy Hulu, Netflix. You can buy a subscription to, Fox, and you can also have a subscription to Peacock and then also Charter. Like you can have all these different subscriptions now, and maybe getting rid of all of that stuff is a good thing to start off with when you're first getting started trying to build up your net worth. So yeah, I totally subscribe to the initial philosophy of Dave Ramsey to get yourself into a healthy steward position.
I 100% agree. I'm a fan of both Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki, even though they kind of preach a different message. But Dave Ramsey, he's a smart dude, and he's awesome at teaching people how to manage their personal finances. And then we'll talk about Robert Kiyosaki down the road on how to build net worth long term. But for me, the first, I don't know, I'm going to say eight or so years of my living after I got out of college, I was having a lot of fun. And I wasn't paying attention to, how much debt I was building up. And over those years, I built up a lot of consumer debt. And then I found Dave Ramsey, and Dave taught me two things that I think are super important when it comes to spending less than you earn. And those two things are, number one, money is more of an emotional thing than just a strictly analytical thing. So many people buy things on emotions rather than, do I really need this thing? And they don't pay attention to, can I really afford this? And I'm talking about, it doesn't matter if you're making just a little bit of money or if you're, like we always talk about hear about the professional athletes or the lottery winner that goes broke after a few years. It doesn't matter. You gotta learn to control your emotions when it comes to finances. And, that's one of the things that Dave Ramsey taught me. And the other thing he taught me is the power of focus. And with those baby steps that you kind of talked about there, I was amazed when I started following Dave's baby steps, how fast I was able to go from not being able to live on how much I earned on a monthly basis to start tracking it, and then with tracking how much I had coming in and how much I had going out, learning how to just focus on tracking it and then paying down one debt at a time and kind of creating that debt snowball and paying it all off. And I was able to pay off all my debt within about a year. And I had a lot. And there's some people that listen to Dave Ramsey and they think you got to save your way there. And I'm not necessarily a saver guy. I'm a grow your income kind of guy. There's so much, to me, it's easier to make more money than it is to live on less. But regardless of whether you're a great saver or you're a great earner, figure it out. Because if you can't figure out step number 2, which is spend less than you earn, then you're not going to ever create wealth with following my game of money. So it's an important step.
Yeah, it's funny you tell that story about your own personal journey. When I started in property management a number of years ago, I was collecting rent at a apartment community in Spanish Lake, St. Louis.
Yep.
And the apartment community had 725 units there. And when I first started there, I'm ashamed to admit it, I didn't know any different. I didn't know what the laws were. they would literally change the handles on the door when the tenant wasn't paying their rent.
Wow. Old
When
school.
when I learned differently, I got organized real quick, and I went out and found Dave Ramsey's 7 Baby Steps to Financial Success. And I would have the tenants sign a promissory note with me when I was collecting the rent. And in that promissory note, we would look at their current month's rent, any late fees that were going to accrue, and then the next month's rent. And we would always have that on the promissory note. And then I would tell them, in order for me to put my signature on this promissory note, I need to go over these 7 baby steps with you. Now, today, I feel like that's extremely egotistical. I would not recommend anybody do that approach. Okay. But then I didn't know. I didn't know that I was not being humble about collecting rent from my tenants at that time. I thought I was just going to teach people how to save money and do it better. And what I come to realize is that if you want to learn this information, if you want to learn Schroedernomics, guys, you're going to have to pay attention, take notes, do this on your own. Nobody's going to hold your hand or force you like I did those tenants back in the day. God, I'm embarrassed for even telling that story. But nobody's going to hold your hand and force you to do the right things with your money. You just have to learn to spend less than you earn. That's step number 2. All right, Bryan. So we talked about finding something that you love what you're doing, because you're going to have to do this with more time and be around people in that industry more than you are probably your own family, which is, I wish we retired at 25 and actually had to go back to work at 65, but that's a story for a different day.
Right.
So we had to find what we love to do, because we're going to be spending a lot of time doing it. The second thing is we have to spend less than we earn. Now, what's this concept of passive income? Let's talk a little bit about step 3.
All right. So I'm going to talk just the concept for just a sec, and then we'll dive into real estate, because we're all real estate investors here. But passive income is basically creating an income stream that will come in whether you're working or not. And when I say passive, it doesn't mean that you don't pay attention to it. You still got to pay attention to it. You might have to work at it like an hour or 2 a week or something like that. But that's my definition of passive income, is income that comes in whether you are actively doing it or not. So, and just some examples are, we're going to talk about cash flowing from rental properties, because that's the main tool that I used. And I know you use also, Nathan, but I also want to just throw out some other things out there. There's like another thing that I did later on, we'll talk about, is I created a business, and then I set it up to run like a business, and I just acted like the owner, as in let the company run itself. So that's a beautiful passive income stream if you can do that. Or I know a lot of people buy existing businesses that can be a great passive income stream. Something just as like a YouTube channel. If you can develop a YouTube channel that you only got to do a post once a week or something like that, I consider that passive. When I kind of didn't talk about this, but when I was younger, I started a network marketing business for a while. And if you can build that network marketing business to where that income is coming in because you built a nice network below you, that can be passive income. In the real estate world these days, there's a lot of real estate agents going over to EXP. And that the way that is set up, if you bring in other agents, you can create a nice passive income stream off of that. So those are just some examples. I just wanted to throw out there. And there's dividend investing stocks, or creating loans. There's so many ways to make passive income. But let's jump into the real estate for just a sec. So I kind of mentioned when I started Faster House, our game plan was to buy, rehab, and resell a house, and to use that as the income that we lived off of. Jim and I doing that. And I'll just share real quick, because there's a lot of real estate investors on this call, I think. We had a setup where I was the acquisitions guy and I was finance. My partner, Jim, was the project manager, so he managed the rehabs. Jim's wife, Claire, was a great designer, and she was a real estate agent, so she sold our houses. And my wife, Debbie, was our bookkeeper. So we had a great team, and we were really good at flipping houses. So we made a good income off of that. fairly quickly. And then what we wanted to do was we wanted to build, a portfolio of rentals to create our net worth. And this was before I knew Schroedernomics. And how we did that is, if we bought a house, if we had enough money to live on from our flipping houses, the next house we bought, we just kept it as a rental. That was about as much analysis as we did on it. So we ended up having houses all over the St. Louis metro area in all price ranges. And a lot of them didn't cash flow because we didn't pay attention to that back then. So we built a portfolio. So we started keeping rentals in 2004. And if you guys remember back to like that 2008 time frame, there was like this financial crisis, if people were around and saw that, or if you've heard about it, where real estate actually went down in value for a number of years. Really, real estate values peaked at the fall of 2006, and they bottomed again in 2012. So there was a 6-year period of time where real estate did not go up in value. It's one of the few times in history where real estate hasn't gone up in value, but it was a period of time. And during that time, I figured out owning houses that don't cash flow is not a good thing. I was basically paying to own an asset that was going down in value. So I love real estate. But what I really encourage people to do is, if you're going to create a passive income stream off of your rental property, make sure you're analyzing every property so you know if it cash flows before you buy it. Because the first 40 houses that I bought didn't cash flow, and I didn't manage that well. But what happened and I don't know when you got into biz, Nathan, but from 2008 to 2012, values of houses dropped a lot. Especially, like, I'm going to use Florissant as an example because that's one of my favorite rental house areas. A house in Florissant that was worth maybe around $140,000 in 2006. It dropped in value to where it's worth about 75 or 80 grand by 2012. And, if we were buying them at a discount, I could pick them up for like 50 grand, in that 2011, 12, 13 time frame. And rents didn't drop at all. That house that rented or was worth 140 grand in 2006, it might have rented for $1,100 or $1,200 a month. And when the value dropped to 70 and I could pick them up at 50, they were still renting for $1,200 a month. So I learned from owning a portfolio of rentals that didn't cash flow that was a nightmare. But I also saw the opportunity that showed up that, holy smokes, we could buy these houses for $50,000, $60,000, put a little bit of money into them to spruce them up and rent them for $1,200. And we were cash flowing $300, $400 per house by doing that. And I went all in at that point, Nathan, and we bought we ended up with 150 houses by the end of 2013. So that's where I built my passive income stream. Step number 3 is figure out a passive income stream for you. For me, I chose cash flow and real estate. But it took me on a journey of, it was really about a 10-year journey of figuring out how to make them cash flow and analyzing them properly. And, I had a little luck in there with the market brought it to us. But I truly believe if you figure out how to create a little bit of passive income, you can turn that into a bigger passive income if you just focus on it. Does that all make sense, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, passive income, from the way I understand it, is income that you're not supposed to have to put any more work into. You do the work once, and then it pays you over and over and over and over again. So you were talking about dividend stocks, rental portfolio, business income, but it doesn't do you any good to buy real estate if it's not going to put out income, if it's going to cost you more to operate that property than it does from the cash that you're going to make off of that property. And so The biggest concern, I could hear it right now. If I was sitting in my audience's shoes, they would be saying, yeah, but Bryan, this is 2024. This isn't 2006 to 2012.
Yep.
Can we still do the same thing? Is it possible in the United States of America to make that same style of program work?
Yes, I believe there is. Now, I am going to say it's not as easy right now, but it wasn't easy when I started either in that 2004 to 2006 timeframe. Values were up, interest rates were up, and I made a mistake. But I talk about my mistake because I think other people can learn from my mistake. I'm not going to say it's as easy to get cash flow on real estate right now today as it was back in 2013, 14. Those were wonderful times, but that doesn't mean that you don't start. And there's times when you go all in, and then there's times when you just, you're more methodical about it. I believe now is a time that you got to be more methodical about it. You got to really run your numbers, but there are ways to do it. So let's just talk about a couple different ways. I'm a single family rental guy. So, and I know you're a little bit more in the multifamily space, right? Right, Nathan?
Yeah. We do small multifamily assets. So 50 units or under in one location. That's our standard property that we're looking for.
Perfect. So maybe we can both talk about this a little bit, but from the single family rental perspective, the way to make them cash flow is maybe you got to move down just a little bit in category, as in, let's just talk about categories of real estate real quick. An A property an A class property is going to be in a great neighborhood in a great part of town, maybe a newer property. A B class property is going to be in, maybe there's some rentals around. There's still mostly homeowners there. Maybe the properties are a little bit dated, as in they're a little older, but it's still a very good neighborhood. C class properties are going to be where maybe there's like 50% of the neighborhood is rentals and 50% of the neighborhood is homeowners, so those, you can kind of identify those type of areas. And then there's D and F type properties, which those are more like war zones where there's going to be like boarded up houses. I don't encourage people going into those type of areas unless that's just something really well for some reason. But
we call those penny stock properties on this show. So
okay, good.
The penny stock properties.
But where I would think that maybe you got to, as a real estate investor that's looking for cash flow in today's market, maybe you got to go into those C type neighborhoods. In St. Louis, maybe that's either like parts of like Bellefonte Neighbors or Spanish Lake or Ferguson or maybe down South City, or in every part of the country is going to have neighborhoods like this. So maybe you just got to move down category just a little bit. Those are easier to cash flow early on than a B or an A type property. And so that's one way. Another way is you just use a little bit longer amortization periods on your loan, where a lot of my loans were either at 20 or 25 year AMs during those good days, but now you can figure out how to get a 30-year amortization period through a DSCR loan or a conventional loan that you keep in your own personal name. Or maybe you do the midterm rental thing. Are you familiar with the midterm rental? That's pretty popular right now.
There's a lot of people that I've been talking to. In fact, I brought a co-host specialist onto our show, Joe, a number of weeks ago, and he was talking about midterm rentals and short-term rentals and stuff like that.
Yep.
That have been very profitable. His big thing was knowing where to buy your properties and how to create additional amenities within those properties so people want to rent them from you.
Totally agree. So you just got to be a little bit more creative. The other one that a lot of people are doing is buying houses subject to the existing financing, where there's a lot of existing financing out there that's at 3%, and you can cash flow those things very well. And I'm sure you can, if you can be selective and do it right, there's ways to cash flow in the multifamily space right now. I got to believe that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, from the multifamily space perspective, the most fascinating thing is that it operates more like a business acquisition than it does like a single family home acquisition. Because single family homes, the price in a single family home real estate is determined by the market value that you could sell it at retail. So that's how typically the valuations are done. But in small multifamily, over 4 units, but under 50 units in one location, you're typically looking at what is the current cash flow off of those properties. So what's fascinating in the small multifamily space and what we find so attractive and interesting is that if you can drive rents properly in an area, you can grow the business value. So you're looking for mismanaged things in the small multifamily space. Unlike in the single family space, which you're looking for something that you can maybe buy a little less expensive and fix up and renovate to a certain point. And so therefore you can cash flow off of the equity that you forced into that property.
Yeah, very well said, Nathan. And but getting back to Schroedernomics here just a little bit, step number 3 is truly just you might have to experiment a little bit to find out what passive income stream is right for you. I found it with single family rentals because that's what I really enjoy. And then I added a lot of other passive income streams over time. But if you just get focused on let me create a passive income stream, you will figure it out if you put your mind to it. If you put your focus and your intention on creating a passive income stream, you can do it, even in today's world. As a matter of fact, I think it's even easier in today's world, not necessarily in real estate, but there's so many different platforms that you can do it on. But then step number 4 is once you've identified your passive income stream, lean into it and grow it. It's just like anything, like you mentioned your daughter, and was it Taekwondo? Is that what your daughter is?
Yeah, she does volleyball now, but she fought in Taekwondo, hand to hand, and then the Bong Mani weapons sparring and weapons forms. That's what she did. So,
and she became one of the best in the world at it because she practiced it, right? The first time she went to class, she was probably pretty crappy at it. Would you agree with that? But it took time for her to learn and get better at it. And that's what I'm saying here with passive income stream. I'm not saying it's super easy to get it started, but if you focus on it and you practice and you continue to get better, you will get very good at it. And so find a passive income stream that you're excited about. And then step number 4 is determine what your monthly expenses are. How much, and for me, I like nice things. So back, and this was 20 years ago, I had my monthly expenses were 10 grand a month. So I wanted to create a passive income stream that was at least 10 grand a month. So I set my goal. It's going to be 10 grand a month. That's what I need to get to at least that. And then I tracked it every month. So if you start tracking and focusing on, it doesn't matter what it is, your daughter's Taekwondo, I'm sure she tracked how, through different, going to different competitions and so forth, how she was doing. Same way with your passive income stream. You got to measure it, keep track of how you're doing over time and put your focus and intention on it, and it'll grow. And, for me, I wasn't very good. I'll be honest with you. It took me about 13 years to get from zero passive income to where my passive income was greater than my monthly expenses. It's because I made a lot of dumb mistakes along the way. I've coached or mentored others more recently that have been able to do it in like 4 or 5 years because they're leaning on my experience, if that makes sense. So anybody can do it. You just got to focus on it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges that people often run into that they don't want is, I call it the scale philosophy, right? When you want to lose weight, you got to step on the scale. Yeah. And the worst thing that people do is they put off sitting down and going through their finances and figuring out just how much money they spend. Yeah. And if you can get in the habit of sitting down and figuring out how much money you spend, you don't even have to do anything about it. Just go look at it. If you look at your weight, you'll go, oh, I probably need to, cut out more carbs this week. And I probably shouldn't eat out as fast food as many times this week. And I need to go for that 30-minute walk that I planned on doing that I told myself I was going to do. The same thing happens when you look at your finances. When you sit down, you actually list them out and you go, okay, Oh wow, I spent money on that this month, and oh yeah, those birthday gifts. Maybe I shouldn't have spent $700 on birthdays this month. I should have maybe only spent like 150. When you start doing those things, it's eye opening.
Yeah, and what you were talking about there was a lot of basically back to how much you spend. But I'm encouraging people to track that, but then also track your passive income as it grows. Track how much passive income you have coming in, whether you do it monthly or quarterly or annually. I prefer monthly because it's more often. And for me, I built my initial passive income off of my rental properties. And then, as we kind of talked a little bit about, I started the company Faster House. I co-started Faster Freedom with Sam Prim, and started Magnolia Real Estate with Matt Becker, and then Faster Funds Lending with my daughter Suzanne. And for me, those businesses have become incredible passive income streams, because some of them I sold and I owner financed. Some of them I'm still an owner in today, and I don't actively run them, but I'm an owner in them. So I get dividend payments off of them. So, for me, it was just tracking it and growing it. I got it well past my $10,000 a month. Matter of fact, today I got over $100,000 a month in passive income coming in, just because that's something that I've enjoyed and enjoyed tracking. So that's step number 4. Let's talk about step number 5. Step number 5 is change the game to building wealth. And you build wealth. So once you get your cash flow greater than your monthly expenses, you want to start building wealth, because we live in a world today. We've gone off the gold standard, which means, in my mind, that's where inflation started. We live in a world with assets are going to continue to inflate. So buy assets, because there's so many reasons for it, but the biggest reason, in my opinion, is your passive income stream. You're being taxed on, and you're being taxed on it fairly heavily, in my opinion, in America today. But your wealth building, once you buy assets, you don't have to pay taxes on those things until you sell them. So I encourage people to change at some point. Once you get past your financial freedom point, start buying assets that go up in value, because you don't need more income. You need to create wealth, and you're going to do that by buying assets. So for me, that was buying single-family houses. I went from owning C-type neighborhood properties to B neighborhood properties to A neighborhood properties. So increase the neighborhood, buy in better neighborhoods, buy better assets. And then I also did it by diversifying, not only just in real estate, but buying, precious metals, crypto, stocks, so focus initially and then diversify and build assets. So step number 5 is change the game from cash flow to wealth building through buying assets. Step number 6 is set a net worth goal and, track it, just like we talked about tracking earlier. Track your net worth every month. Nathan, do you track your net worth every month or every quarter or annually or anything like that?
Yeah, we typically do it every year right now.
Okay.
Trying to track it every month or whatever, that makes it a little bit difficult for me to stomach, just because we're not. I have annual goals that I'm trying to achieve, so I try to match them up with my net worth right now.
Yeah, and the other thing I encourage people to do is set a goal for your net worth. So Nathan, have you set a goal for what you want your net worth to be? When will Nathan say, I've reached my goal?
Yeah, so I have it in my day timer here. Give me 1 second.
I love it. That's awesome, man.
So 2037.
Okay, that's awesome. Do you have a value, a net worth goal that you want to have in the year 2037?
Yeah, about $72 million.
I love it, man. That's awesome. I love it when people have a number. It doesn't matter what number is. I've heard people say anywhere from I just want to be a millionaire to I want to be a billionaire, and it doesn't matter to me. I just like it when you have your number and you're tracking it. And you know where you're at. So congratulations on that. So that's step number 6, and then for me, step number 7 is once you reach your net worth goal, relax and just have fun. Hopefully you're having fun along the way, but once you meet your net worth goal, you have nothing else to prove. If you keep trying to do things at that point, hopefully you're serving people and not trying to serve your ego. And I do find some people that just continue to build because that's an ego thing for them. I just encourage people, once you meet your goal, just relax, enjoy your life, serve other people however you can. Yeah, whatever's right for you.
Yeah, I love living a life of servitude. I love living a life of providing value and building value in other people. Oftentimes on this show, every single person, every single relationship is an asset, and that asset, for whatever reason, people don't see the value in themselves. They don't recognize how valuable they are. They just don't know. And I think it's just a lifelong journey of philosophy of spending your entire life building value in other people, giving value to other people, and adding value to other people's lives.
Well said, man. And you're doing that with this podcast, this show that you're doing here. You're providing a ton of value, and I know you are with other things too. But this show is really cool.
We call it Mind Renovation Nation for a reason, is because we want to make sure we have our mind right? Yeah. Because you can go out and take all kinds of action, but if your mindset's screwed up in the process, you're going to self-sabotage because you don't value yourself enough in order to hold yourself accountable to the high enough standard to hit the goals that you have for yourself. So as we talk about relaxing and wealth building and getting to those certain goals and serving other people, I think that part of that process is learning to do that along the way as well, right? As you hit those different goals, be able to relax. Not everything, just because I have a $72 million net worth goal, that doesn't mean that's my immediate goal in my lifetime, right? Yeah. So I have little goals along the way that I also need to hit and be able to relax and recognize that, hey, there's value in me for being able to achieve the goal that I set out for. I'm the type of person that can achieve those things. So it's okay that I relax and take a little break and then get back at it. I think the mistake a lot of people miss in this world is they get off the diet and they forgot what got them to the point where they were successful in their weight. And I think the same thing happens whenever we talk about wealth building or character building or anything else, is that we learn these disciplines, we take these cheat days or shortcuts or whatever, and then we just let that become the discipline, and that becomes the problem.
Yeah, well said. I agree 100%, especially on that, the mindset piece. We didn't go into that, but I'm a total believer that the mindset, it's just so important. And I feel like I have grown in my consciousness, my mindset, my personal growth, however you want to define it, through growing a business. There's so many challenges that come up with growing a business that to get through it successfully, you got to really, improve your mindset. So well said there, Nathan. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Well, Bryan, we're coming up on an hour right now. And the last question that I have for you is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received or gotten from a mentor or somebody you look up to?
Well, for me, it's just to have fun with whatever you're doing. That's what it is for me. Just enjoy life. Enjoy what you're doing with today, tomorrow, whatever you're doing. Find things that you enjoy. And I also believe that people are meant to serve others, and that's really where the joy is. So find a way that you're serving others, because your life is going to be fulfilled for that.
That's awesome, Bryan. Bryan, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you? And what projects are you currently working on that people need to be paying attention to?
Right. Well, I don't really have a great platform for people to connect with me other than anybody can reach out to me through Messenger, on Facebook. So that's one way to do it. I am still involved in our lending business, Faster Funds Lending in St. Louis. So if you're a flipper or somebody growing a portfolio of rentals using the Burr method in St. Louis, reach out to Faster Funds Lending. Love to help you with that. And a project that I'm working on right now is I've fallen in love with this town called Sedona, Arizona, and I'm just having fun with creating vacation rentals out here. So we have 2 of them right now, and that's where I am right now. It's a beautiful place. I just love making a cool a house, a special place for people to come visit. So that's what we're doing out here right now.
Well, guys, follow Bryan online. Make sure that you go to his Facebook page. It's probably the best place, like you said, to follow him and to connect with him. Make sure that if you're a flipper in the area, you use Bryan's service for your loans. There's a number of they call it private lending platforms that are out there. Bryan's got one of the best, so that's why we had him on the show. He's been a name in real estate that can be trusted, and so Bryan, thank you very much for being a part of the show today.
Thanks, Nathan. It was fun.
All right. Well, guys, there you have it. I mean, that is Bryan Schroeder. What an amazing guy. What an amazing talent. And don't you just love Schroedernomics? If that was beneficial for you guys, make sure you give show Bryan all of the love in the chat. Make sure you like and share the show. Those things are extremely important in order to make sure that Bryan gets all of the traction that he absolutely deserves. Remember, relax and enjoy financial freedom, guys. When you hit these goals, make sure that you spend the time relaxing and enjoying financial freedom. I want to take a second and thank a couple sponsors. Thank you very much, BBC Global Services. You are the virtual assistant company that we use and recommend. If you guys need a virtual assistant, somebody to help out with property management, or if you're trying to do a lot of things on your own, you need somebody to answer phones or do customer support or service, bbcglobalservices.com. That's bbcglobalservices.com. They're the virtual assistant company that allows you to operate your superpower and let them do the other tasks. So that's BBC Global Services. I significantly appreciate all of the sponsors for the show, which is also Web Insurance. So if you need insurance, guys, these guys are designed for you. 1099s, if you receive your income 1099, you don't have a W-2, you need health insurance, you need property and casualty insurance, life insurance, you have to go get a quote from www.webinsurance.com. And what their clients love about them is every year they'll proactively shop the carrier to make sure you're with the most appropriate carrier at the most affordable coverages. So head on over to www.webinsurance.com. So for most of you guys, you know this guy right here that's on the screen. His name is Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was mentioned by Bryan Schroeder a couple of times during the show today. Robert Kiyosaki said financial freedom is available to those who will learn about it and work for it. So there's 2 things you have to do to have your mindset right about achieving what Bryan Schroeder was talking about in his Schroedernomics. You have to learn about it, and you have to work for it. He gave you a number of different things to learn about today. He said, learn how to work for what you love. Go find what you're passionate about and do what you love. Then spend less than you earn. As a recap, he said passive income. Learn to build passive income. That's something you have to work towards. Passive income doesn't just come to you. You have to learn about it and then go earn passive income and work towards it. Then set a goal. Set a goal that's larger than your passive income. For your passive income, set a goal that's larger than your expenses. This will help you achieve what you need to in order to be financially free, financially break free from the financial constraints of expenses and working for the money that you're earning so that you can focus on the next step, which is your net worth and building that net worth. Focus on wealth building, because wealth building and setting goals for your net worth help you to avoid having to pay a bunch of taxes where you keep adding more income. You add assets that help offset the growth of that net worth. And then lastly, you're setting that net worth goal. So once you hit it, relax, chill out. Not everything always has to be about the next chase or the next dollar or the next asset. You can actually achieve goals Bryan was talking about some of his students, some of the people that he's coached over the last couple of years, been able to do it in 5-6 years versus what it took him, I think he said 13 years in order to be able to do it. So that's for you guys that are out there. I know a lot of you have been asking about Bryan Schroeder. That's one of the reasons we wanted to have him on the show. What an incredible, great guy. Again, if you got a lot of value out of today's show, make sure you like the show, you share the show, and you put some type of comment in the notes to let us know what parts you loved about the show. All right, guys. You know this, Renovation Nation. I wrote a book called The Caesar Method. This is how you achieve rapid strategic growth. This is a growth formula or a growth method. If you want one-on-one coaching, learning how we did that with Red Maples, going from basically 24 units under management, now we got just over 200 units under management, and we did that in less than 18 months. If you want to know the formula that we used in order to grow so fast, I'm going to give you a hint. It's relationship oriented. And so if you want to grow fast, you got to know people. And the way that you can achieve your goals faster is through this formula called the Caesar Method. I can offer one-on-one coaching for that. But if you don't want to pay for coaching, just go get the book. It's that simple. I think it's $24 or $25 or something like that on Amazon. All right. And that, Renovation Nation, brings us again to the end of another episode. I'm Nathan Bush, your guide on this journey of real estate business growth. Remember, just like plants need the right air, soil, and care, our minds need the right environment to build a life of purpose and passion and growth. And don't forget to get your citizenship to Mind Renovation Nation. The way that works is you follow us by subscribing to the YouTube channel. You go over to the email list, you subscribe to the email list, and you share the show. That way other people can come on you with this journey every Friday at noon. So join me next time for a little more insights, inspiration, of course, a little bit of that nation-building spirit that drives us to create a community united by shared values, purpose, and a commitment to leaving a lasting legacy. Until then, keep building, keep growing, and let's lead more than 25,000 souls to a life of values-based investing. Yes, this values-based investing in our journey of Mind Renovation Nation, we're talking specifically about personal growth, ethical leadership, and making impactful choices. And values-based investing is an extension of that philosophy. It's about being a steward, not only of our finances, but of the values and vision we have for the future. So, signing off from the heart of St. Louis, guys, stay blessed, stay inspired. Remember, every day is a chance to renovate your nation. Thanks, guys.